Okay, so everybody, this is Miriam Lancewood. I'm so happy to be with her today. She makes me the honor to accept this interview. So Miriam has been living in the wilderness with her husband for more than 10 years, I want to say, but I've heard different times. I've heard 6 years, I've heard 7 years, 9 years. So I don't know for how long you've been living this way, actually. You wrote two books. You wrote a book in 2017, and you just wrote another book this year that is called Wild at Heart. So I've just read your first book. I don't have the second book yet, but you will tell us where we can buy it and or if we can get it online. But yeah, you can maybe introduce yourself if you want.
Yeah. So my name is Miriam Lancewood, and I was born in Holland. And after my studies, which was physical education, I went to travel in Africa for a year. I went to, work in Africa. And then after that, I traveled in India. And in India, I was 22. I met my now husband, Peter, and he was 52 at the time. And together we traveled all the way to New Zealand. And there I had to work for 1 year as a physical education teacher. And in 2010, we thought, hey, let us do something really extraordinary. Let us live in the wilderness, but just for 4 seasons, just for 1 year. And this 1 year became 7. And after 6 years, I wrote the book, Woman in the Wilderness. That's why I got 6. In the total was 7. And after 7 years, we went to Europe. And we walked 2,000 kilometers through Europe and Turkey. And now we are back in the bush in New Zealand. So hence the different numbers.
All right. So now 2020, it's been 10 years that you're living this way, right?
Yep.
Cool. Yep. Great. Okay. So can you talk about your first book? So I've read your first book, and you talk about your way of life in New Zealand, right?
Mm-hmm.
With your husband Peter, and you tell the story of how you hike through the mountains. But go ahead, maybe you will talk about it better than myself.
Yeah, so they say the first book is about 6 years in the wilderness. So we moved around like nomads. We never stayed in one place very long. We slept in a tent and always cooked on a fire. And I learned how to hunt with a bow and arrow and later with a rifle. So we live a little bit like our ancestors. Of hunting and gathering as much as we can. But we also always take food supplies like flour and rice and lentils, just because there is not much fruit and vegetables to be found in the high mountains where we are. If we were on the sea level, near the sea, we could have collected a lot more. But in the high mountains, maybe 1,000 meters up, it's much colder and a lot less vegetables to find.
Right. Yes. This is a question I wanted to ask you because I got my hunting license this year, and
great.
Yeah, and so I've been hunting with a bow and arrow, but also with a rifle, and it's
fantastic. Well done.
Thank you. But you were a great inspiration. Actually, I practiced with a bow and arrow like more than 10 years ago, but that was not for hunting. That was just for competition and stuff like that.
Archery.
Yeah, archery. Yeah. And I decided to do that again this year during the lockdown because we were in lockdown for 2 months. So that was something to spend time while in the lockdown. But anyway, so I started hunting this year in September, and it's very, very hard to see an animal, and let alone to have the opportunity for the animal to be close enough in the right position so you can shoot your arrow in the right place and kill it. It's so complicated. So I've been hunting since beginning of September, and I have not killed one animal yet. It's so
No, it's
complicated.
very difficult.
So
Yeah.
that was a question I wanted to ask you. Yes. So how did you do to provide food to yourself and your husband? First, with only your bow and arrow, because it's so much more complicated hunting this way.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you said, so you could harvest some wild edible plants, but it's not enough to feel full, right? So
No.
yeah, so you said that you brought some food with you, some flour and rice
Yeah.
and stuff
And
like that.
beans. Yeah.
But
And in the first winter, we started trapping possums. A possum is an animal the size of a cat, but a little pouch like a kangaroo and a big tail. And they are introduced from Australia and classified as a pest.
right.
So the government wants to get rid of these possums, right? And nobody eats them. It's like rats. Like people say, you cannot eat a possum. It's like, it's yuck, right? So, but we did, and we trapped them, and that's how we got food in the first winter. Because this hunting, as you have discovered, is very difficult.
Yeah.
I did not see any animals. For 6 months, I did not see anything.
Oh
Yeah.
wow! Oh wow! So that's how you fed yourself, just by trapping possums and
Yeah,
with the
that's
food
why
you
we had to
brought.
trap possums. Yeah.
Oh, so you didn't actually hunt them with a bow and arrow. You use traps to
Trap.
catch
Yeah,
them.
they stand in a trap. Yeah, this is terrible. And then they are still alive. So then I had to hit them on the head with a sort of a little axe, like a
Okay.
hammer. Yeah, and this is very traumatic because they do not die easily.
Oh wow!
And first time I was very, I cried because that all went wrong. It didn't die, got wounded. I was in panic.
Yeah, I think
And
you wrote it in your book, right?
yeah,
You wrote this
yeah,
episode.
it's very, very traumatic. So, and I was so disappointed in myself that I lost enthusiasm for hunting.
Right.
Because I went out but never saw anything, and in the end I thought I will not succeed. I will give up. I will eat possums and beans. But luckily we then moved to an area with more goats, and goats are much easier to hunt than with a bow and arrow than, for example, a rabbit, because a rabbit is very small.
Right.
Possum, a goat is much bigger.
Yeah.
And that's much easier. And I thought, the whole country will be more or less filled with goats, possums, deer, and all that. But no, not at all. Some valleys is full with goats. The next valley over is nothing. So you have to have the knowledge of where the animals are. And this is one of the things I learned.
Yeah, and how did you learn where to find them?
By talking to other hunters.
Oh.
So other hunters, they all ask information, like, have you seen any sign of deer, any sign of goats? And then they say, okay, then I'm not going there, but I'm going over there.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And to catch the possums, did you make the traps yourself? Or
no, just buy them in the shop. Yeah, about €7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you bought traps in the shops and then you just put them in. Yeah. Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, but so when you hunt goats, I mean, what is difficult with a bow and arrow is that you need to get really close, like
exactly,
maximum like 30 meters, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So how do you do for the goats not to see you or to hear you?
Yeah, I have to crawl over the ground, sometimes with my stomach over the ground, and be very, very quiet, and make sure that the wind is right. So
that's
if
very important.
I smell the goat cannot smell me.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because then the wind is coming this way, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but if the wind is wrong, the goat will smell me and they go away. So the wind, very important, the light, and also the time of the day. I learned that in daytime you don't see much. So you always have to go in the late evening, sunset or sunrise.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are there special regulations in New Zealand to hunt? Because like there are so many rules and regulations here in Europe. I mean, there are very specific times, like we can't hunt before 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure about the limit at night. Yeah. and we can't just go like that in nature. We have to be part of a hunter society and to sign
how complicated.
to sign a paper every day, and some days you can hunt this animal but not this other animal. I mean, it's full of rules and regulations, and you can't hunt anywhere. You really have to go to a very specific territory. If you don't, they will fine you. I mean, it's very complicated. So how is it in New Zealand? Is it more free, more open?
Yep, and you can hunt all year round and anytime. Not at night though, only daytime. But daytime includes the sunset and sunrise. Just not spotlighting. So spotlighting is with a flashlight, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So you're not allowed to do that. Only on private land you are allowed to use the flashlight. Otherwise, it's very good for hunting. That's another reason why New Zealand is very good.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And you can hunt any animal you want, or?
Only the introduced animals. So New Zealand used to be a bird island, and there was only birds here. And all those birds are protected. You cannot hunt and kill these birds. Then you get a big fine because we try to protect all the birds. But all the animals, like the deer, the pig, the goat, all the animals that are introduced from Europe and Australia, you can hunt.
Okay, with no limitation. No limitation. You can hunt as many as you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I received many questions because I promoted our interview on different Facebook groups, and I've received many questions from hunters. So those were some questions they were asking. And they also wanted, and I also wanted to know what type of bow did you use, and do you still use it actually?
I bought a 50-pound recurve bow takedown. Okay. So you can take the limbs down, and this is very handy because then it fits in your pack.
Yeah,
so that's great.
I have the same.
50 pounds, so it's quite heavy to draw.
Right.
But of course, it will shoot more straight then.
Yeah.
And intuitive shooting. In other words, you have no idea where you're shooting. There are no sights. You just have to practice for a long time and then shoot. So that means that sometimes I missed and lost the arrow. And one arrow is about 10 euro. Yeah. So it's quite expensive if you shoot 6 arrows.
Yeah.
And I also discovered that often I wound the animal and the animal would run away. And I feel so guilty.
Yeah.
So after 2 years, I switched to a rifle. First a 22 rifle and now a 223. So quite a big bullet. The 223 is good for deer also and good for small animals. So this is the perfect caliber. Yes, I do still practice on the target, but I do not go hunting again with the bow.
No.
I find it so difficult.
Yeah. Could you talk maybe about your second book? Because I think your second book was about your trip in Europe.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So my parents have moved from Holland to France, and they are living near Valence in the Ardèche.
Oh, it's very close to where my parents are. That's nice.
Great.
Next time you come visit us.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really nice. It's very sunny and still some wide areas over there. Cool.
Yeah.
So that's why you started with France when you did your trip.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we flew into Paris, then took a train down to the Ardèche, to Valence, and we started walking there. The E4 walkway, the GR91 Grand Randonnée.
Oh, cool.
No.
Okay.
And we walked all through the Vercors and Chartreuse.
Wow.
All into Switzerland. And we walked the Jura Crest Trail in Switzerland. And then we walked the Maximilian Way in Germany. Mm-hmm. This is on the border with Austria, all through the mountains. So we walked 1,000 kilometers in 3 months, all through Western Europe. And every night we slept in the forest and cooked on a fire still.
So I have many questions about your trip in Europe, because again, Europe is so full of very strict regulations, and you can't just camp anywhere, put your tent anywhere. So I was wondering, how did you do? And for that, like, just how did you do to just put your tent in a place, because it's so regulated? You can't do that anywhere. I mean, everywhere.
No.
And also about hunting. So I understood that you actually gave up the idea of hunting in Europe because it was
Yeah.
too complicated.
Yeah, too complicated.
And
So I did not hunt. I did not bring my rifle to Europe. It's too complicated, and I don't have the hunting license in France. And as you say, so many regulations.
Yeah.
But there are many regulations about camping. But guess what? There's no one out there. Everybody goes into their village and cities in the evening. They don't see us. So we go into the forest, off the path, and no one goes off the path.
Oh yeah.
And we walk maybe 50 meters or 100 meters, find a nice spot in the forest and pitch a tent and light a fire even, and nobody sees us.
Oh really? So
no problem.
No guards coming by and controlling and
Never.
wow, cool. You were lucky maybe. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we walked 3 months and never had any problem. Even in Switzerland, it's very regulated and you get a big fine if you camp.
Yeah.
But
you did
we
anyway.
are not. Yeah, because otherwise we have to go to camping and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And we don't want to live that way.
Right.
So we said to each other, let them come. If they want to fine us, okay, we pay the fine. It's still cheaper than campsite.
Oh yeah.
And of course, nobody saw us. So yeah, you have to break the rules because otherwise you have created your own prison.
Exactly.
So yes.
Yeah, cool. Wow, even with a fire, they wouldn't come to you. That's okay. That's interesting. And
but we go far into the forest, and there's no one out there. Nobody.
Okay, good to know. And so, as you couldn't hunt, so you used to buy your food like in supermarkets, and you had to carry your food around in your backpacks.
Yeah, every few days we come to or near a village, so very easy compared to New Zealand. Okay. And also so many fruit trees and nut trees. It was amazing.
In the forests?
Yeah, and on the open fields near the villages. It was fantastic. And especially in East Europe, in Bulgaria, they have planted so many fruit trees and berries, blueberries, strawberries. We are eating all day. It was fantastic.
Cool, that's great. Okay, and so did you like this trip through Europe? And so what were the main differences between like hiking in New Zealand and hiking in Europe?
Well, the main difference is no hunting. And of course, more population in Europe. But as I said, we were surprised how few people are in the forest. And also very, very surprised how much forest there is, especially France. So much regenerating forest, and it's amazing. So in the past, many people have gone from the village to the city, and maybe their grandparents had a farm, but now the land is growing back to forest, and all of the forest is coming back. This is fantastic. Yeah, and the wildlife is coming back, and so we saw a lynx in Switzerland, which is like a big cat, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see. And we saw a lot of sign of bears and wolves in Bulgaria, in East Europe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so all that is coming back. So a lot of good things are happening.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, here we can only see really raw deers and wild boars like everywhere. They are very easy to see everywhere. So far, I haven't seen many other animals, but I'm still happy to see this wildlife because when I was in the city, of course, I would never see them except wild boars. Wild boars are considered like a pest in France, so they are everywhere.
Oh yeah. So people should eat more pork.
Yeah. But that's like right now, for example, we are in lockdown again, and so people can't go out, but they are giving a special authorization for hunters to hunt wild boars because there are too many wild boars destroying the cultures. So yeah, we are allowed to go out for that for hunting wild boars.
Yeah, that's good. And the wild meat is so healthy to eat.
Of course,
it makes
that's
you
the best.
much more strong. And also we are cooking the bones and eat all the ligaments and the bone marrow and all the organs. And I think this is very healthy for us.
Exactly, I do that too.
Yeah.
So how did you do for water when you crossed Europe? I understood that you couldn't just drink water from the rivers. You had to carry it around.
Yeah. So this is very heavy, right?
Mm.
So we had to we come to a village and we fill up all our bottles, which is 10 liter. And this is enough for one evening and one morning. And so
Oh,
we have to then move on the next day. That was one disadvantage. Because
yeah.
normally here in New Zealand, we can stay one week in one place. If I catch a goat, we've got plenty to eat. There's always rivers we can drink out of,
Mm.
but not so in Europe.
Okay.
So this was the problem. We could not rest so much.
So in New Zealand, you just drink the water directly from the rivers. You don't filter it.
No,
Anything? No, and you don't get sick from drinking wild water like that. No.
no. I think it's very healthy.
Cool. And in Europe, I mean, in France, we have many rivers too. But did you try drinking the water in the rivers, or did you know there was some kind of pollution? Or
When it's very high up, yep, we drink straight out of the creek.
okay,
Yeah, when there's no houses above, we drink straight out of the rivers.
okay,
Yeah, but sometimes you don't know, and then we are careful.
yeah,
But in East Europe, it was we drank. They have a little tap they make from the creek. They put a pipe in and then a little tap with a little cup. And you can drink the water there. It's fantastic.
cool.
And that's all pure water from the mountains.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a question I wanted to ask you. Like, you never got ill from drinking water in the mountains or from food
A
poisoning?
little bit in Turkey.
Oh,
We
yeah?
got a bit of diarrhea in Turkey, actually. Yeah.
Ah.
There might be more polluted there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's quite dry there. Yeah.
It was like from a river near a village or something?
No, it was like a well, a stone well.
From a well?
And we get water out of that, and then we still boil it, but I think it's still polluted.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that water was not good. Yeah, and it was often dry. Yeah, I
Okay.
think Turkey was problematic, but Bulgaria and West Europe was all good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never use like chlorine pills to purify the water before you drink it, no? You don't use
No, once
stuff
I
like that.
bought it, and Peter looked at the packet and saw how much chemicals was in there,
Yeah.
and he said, "You're better off getting
Yeah.
sick with diarrhea than eating these chemicals all the time."
I agree
Yeah.
with him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I
cool.
think it would be good if I give advice to other people to have some backup pills like that,
Oh, yeah?
in case you're really thirsty and you don't you're almost dying of thirst, and then you can have one pill to put in this dodgy water. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
But yeah, Peter was against it.
Yeah, I understand. And so that was also another question I had about hunting. So when you hunt an animal, I heard you say in an interview that you can hunt a goat, and so a goat is quite big for two people. It's still a big animal to eat, and you were saying that you keep the goat for 1 week, like you eat this goat for 1 week. And how do you do, because you don't have a fridge, so how do you preserve the meat for 1 week?
Yeah, so this is more like winter times. And when it's cold weather. But if it's hot weather, it's very difficult to keep, and the flies coming immediately.
Yeah.
So sometimes we smoke it. So we make branches over a smoky fire, and then put pieces of meat on the branches, and then we can keep it a little bit longer. But generally, we just have to eat as much as possible, so we grow very big.
Okay.
It's feast and famine.
And so about your trip in Europe, so after you finished it, you just went back to New Zealand and continued to live in the mountains of New Zealand? And
and I also organized an epic female expedition, because I thought I want to do something extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought an expedition has maybe never happened before. I don't know. But I thought I organized it. And I was looking for 5 other female hunters. But I got 200 applications, but none of them could really hunt or had much experience with hunting. As you discovered, it takes a while to become very good. And my idea was to live for 2.5 months only of hunting and fishing. So we are dependent on hunting. I have to have very experienced hunters.
Mhm.
In the end, I went only with one other woman, because I could hunt for both of us, and I cannot hunt for 5 others.
Oh, so she
So
was not she was not hunting with you? You were the only one hunting?
we went hunting together, yes,
Okay.
but she was still learning. So in the
Oh,
beginning, it took a month or so to shoot her first hare or something, you know.
okay.
But she was a very quick learner, and she was soon successful. And we were in a very good area. And she was also a very, very good cook. She happened to be a Michelin star chef.
Wow. Wow.
And she also knew everything about edible plants. So our two skills together was perfect.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool. But you knew edible plants also, no? Before that, did you study?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I also, yeah.
in your book you said that Peter taught you some plants, some wild plants,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And yeah, I remember I saw your video, but I saw it too late. Otherwise, I would have
Oh, yeah.
asked
Yes,
you to
indeed.
join you. But
Maybe next time.
but you had very strict criteria. I remember you wanted a woman who could do 70 push-ups. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I can do 20 push-ups. And
Yeah.
I remember someone in the comments ask you, but can you do 70 push-ups? And you say yes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I tested first. Yes, because I thought I need very, very strong women
Yeah.
to climb, because we have to rely on each other. But it didn't matter. But I thought I put the bar very high,
Okay.
so that I get the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, if depending on survival, you know. But it's
Okay.
still difficult. How do you select the women to come?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking maybe I should organize a test week,
Mhm.
like go for a 1 week maybe. But if you only go 1 week, you are still very full of energy. You are not hungry. You're very happy. It's very different after 2 months. If you don't have so much food and you get very skinny and hungry, are you still a happy person? You know, those it's very tricky to select a good team.
Right. So how did it go? Your 2 months and a half like that. So you didn't bring any food with you, right? It was just eating what you hunt and what you harvest in
Yeah.
nature, right? How did it
We
go?
had some backup food,
Yeah.
some pemmican my friend Tamar had made. Yes, we started off with 1 kilo of flour or so, but that basically lasted 10 weeks. And so what happened is at one point, we were not successful with hunting. And instead, we were eating more snowberries. That is a berry, a white berry, very nice, but not very filling. But it fills up your stomach, but of course, not so much energy. So we're eating for hours and hours these berries, and we're not hungry. And then we said, shall we go hunting? The next morning, nah, I'm a bit tired. I want to sleep a little bit more. And we got more and more tired.
Mm.
And then after a week or so, we realized like, oh, we have not had so much to eat actually. And we're still walking in the mountains. And then we realized we're slowly starving ourselves without being hungry. And this was the
Wow.
strangest thing. Because of eating so many berries, we're not hungry, see? Luckily, after 1 week, we met 2 hunters who just shot a big deer, a stag. And they said, oh, we have so much meat. Come quickly and you can have a leg and the brain. So the first thing we did is fry up the brain because there's so much fat in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're
Wow.
saved by other
So
hunters.
yeah, you were like starving without realizing
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah,
you were lacking like fats and protein in your diet, basically.
yes, indeed. Yeah, no fat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Cool.
we're only living off berries. And of course, we're still walking the mountains.
Yeah, yeah, and this demands lots of energy, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We lost a lot of weight, especially me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can show you a picture of what I look like. My trousers are too big. Apart from that week, we caught plenty of animals, but no fat. The animals are not so fat.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we walk so much, and I just lost quite a lot of weight. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask, how are you and how is Peter?
Yes, very good. if you read the second book, you will see that Peter got sick with kidney failure in Australia 2 years ago. It started off with diarrhea. He got sick in Australia where we were traveling, and we were in the desert. And if you have diarrhea, then you dry out and lose a lot of moisture, of course. And soon he was fainting. He was losing consciousness. Luckily, we were close to the hospital, and I brought him into the hospital. And there he was diagnosed with acute kidney failure due to dehydration. And this happens quite a lot in the outback of Australia with the Aborigines and stockmen and the farmers. They get this quite often. And he was 5 weeks in the hospital. It was a very long time.
Yeah.
And in the end, he was allowed out. And they said, you should recover in 1 month. And then 6 months later, he did not recover, and he only got worse and worse and worse. And they said, sorry, Peter, you now have chronic kidney failure. And that means this is pretty deadly. Yeah. That means he had not long to live. Very dramatic. And this is when we went for the first time in 9 years, we went to a house, and we rented a house for him to enjoy, so to say, his last months of his life.
Oh, so you thought he was going to die within a month?
No, maybe 6 months or so.
Okay.
Yeah, he did not have long to live because the doctor said you need dialysis and a kidney donor transplant. Mm-hmm. And we looked at all the options and all the side effects. It's not at all easy. It's not straightforward. Many, many side effects of dialysis. And in the end, Peter said, I'd rather die than live on dialysis. Yeah. He's basically said, I'd rather die than live in what feels like a prison.
Yeah, exactly. It's understandable.
And yeah, and that's why we went to a house for him to enjoy the last months. And then a miracle happened, and after 6 months his kidney started to improve again, and he is now doing very well.
Cool. That's great news. Cool.
Yeah, it's a miracle. A medical miracle. Yep.
Wow. And how did he do, what did he do to become better, to feel better? Did he do something in particular?
Nothing in particular. I had organized a Chinese medicine man, already made an appointment. And he said, no, I don't want to go to a Chinese medicine man. I don't want the renal specialist in the hospital. And he knows everything about kidneys. If I need help, I'll go to that specialist. I don't want any interference. Because he said the risk that it get worse is quite high. Because you have to be so careful with even herbs for the kidneys. Because they cannot handle so many herbs even and strong elements. They cannot filter it. So he did nothing except sleep. So he slept maybe 12, 13 hours every night during that whole winter. Oh, wow. And I think sleep is most important for the kidneys. Also, Peter was not afraid to die because he had had some experience in the past. And because of this, he was not afraid of death. And I think everybody, myself included, I would be afraid to die, but that fear takes up a lot of energy. So if you don't have that fear, you have extra energy, right? And maybe in Peter's case, that energy was used to recover.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's very
Who
interesting.
Knows?
Yeah.
No, might also be just lucky. And of course, he was quite healthy to start with.
Yeah. No, and resting is very important indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. But the chance that this was happening statistically was only 3%.
Oh, wow. Wow. So that's really, well, you must be so happy. He feels so much better right now, right?
Yeah. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
So we have been in the house for 1 year, and last winter we've been in a hut in Abel Tasman National Park. And in 4 weeks' time, we go back in a tent in the high mountains.
So he got this problem from diarrhea in the desert. And did he get this diarrhea from eating something wrong, or do you know?
Yeah, we don't know. We never found out. They did so many tests, but never found out what it was.
Wow. So it was really like severe dehydration that caused his kidney failure. Okay.
Yes, indeed. And also, what we discovered is you can almost die of dehydration without ever being thirsty.
So yeah,
we had plenty of water. We had 20 liters of water, Peter then nearly died of dehydration. It's amazing. Also, we learned that 1 in 10 people have already kidney problem without noticing it. Yeah.
Wow. Really?
So
Wow.
if I now see friends, I give them all the time water, and I tell them you have to drink more water. Some people hardly drink water. Some people don't drink much, and
But
their kidneys are slowly going down and down, and you don't notice it until 80% of your kidneys is gone.
oh my
Only then
God.
you notice.
And you
So,
never had any problems?
no, I was lucky. I never had anything. No.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you still live in the wilderness? So you just said that you will go back into the wilderness. You will do as always, just in a tent and hunt as you did for
Yeah.
many years. Yeah. Cool. For
Yeah,
how
we
long?
are now in a hut, in a very primitive hut, but on a 4-wheel drive road. So we can still drive to it. But very far into the forest, and we have no neighbors.
Oh, wow.
And I still go hunting every couple of days. And our hut has no electricity and no hot water. And we just washed in the creek. But I don't call that really wilderness because you can drive to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see. And how do you do with your phone? How do you charge it? How do you have signal right now?
Oh, right now you can hear the airplanes, no? I am now in the city of Wellington and staying with friends.
Oh, okay.
Because
yeah.
I was invited to.
Right. Oh, I thought you said you were in a hunt right now. Okay, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The airplane is going over right now. I was here invited for a writers' festival, and they have a lot of festivals like this in New Zealand. Luckily, with COVID, everything can continue the way it used to.
Cool.
So I'm in the city and make the most of the Wi-Fi to call to journalists and to my parents.
Yeah, great. Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you, how is it with the pandemic in New Zealand? How did you live through it? So actually, that was at the same time that Peter had his kidney problems, right? So you had to go back to the city this year, right? That's what you were saying?
Yes, exactly. With the COVID, we moved out back into the forest, into our hut where we are now. That was 6 months ago. But
so you could stay free.
We don't notice. Yeah, we only notice there is less airplanes.
Okay.
And right now in New Zealand is really good. They have closed the borders. Of course, it's easy because we are an island. And there's no COVID here. And everybody is just acting like normal. I spoke to 200 people last weekend about my book. And there's no problem at all. So we are very lucky.
Okay, so you are free to move, to drive around, to go wherever you want in the country? Oh, cool. Yeah. In Europe, it's a little more complicated right now. Yeah, very scary. So, and do you feel safer in the forest, in the wilderness, when something like that happens in the world? Yeah, we're totally safe out and not seeing anyone. We never used to get sick in the wilderness here in New Zealand, only when we come to town and we get the flu and the cold. And I had questions also about like people were wondering if you need money with your way of life. Do you need money? And if you do, how do you make money? Well, I now make money with the book. Okay. So my first book became an international bestseller. And this is fantastic income. And if we live very frugally, we can live on this for a long time. Wow, only with your book. Cool. That's great. Yeah. Okay. And of course, yes, we need money to fly across the world and to buy things like rice and flour and all that. Yeah. And I saw that, so in your first book, you say that you sometimes need to go in the city and sing to get some money to buy some food. Do you still do that or? Oh, sing. Yeah, I used to do that some years ago. Yeah, it was such good fun, but now not anymore. Not anymore? My guitar is stored in another place and I don't have access. No, now my creative thing is, I guess, writing rather than singing. But I enjoy singing, yes. Cool. And do you earn some money from your YouTube channel? No. No, I don't have enough subscription, and I also don't upload so much. I only upload the few things that has been on television for amusement, not for making money. I don't need to. I just the book is enough. Okay, cool. And do you like to go back in the city when you have to promote your book, to be in the city in hotels and stuff like that? Do you like it, or
Yeah.
are you impatient to go back to the wilderness when you are in the city?
No, it's only 2 weeks. I am 2 weeks in the city. I think by the end I will be very tired
Mm.
because the electricity will keep me awake.
Right.
The looking at the telephone,
Mm.
and so I sleep very late, and I always wake up early, so I get sleep deprived after 2 weeks. But I am so happy to see my family and to catch up with friends. And yeah, I go to a cafe, I buy coffee, I go to the theater, and yes, I enjoy it.
Okay, cool. But you still prefer living in the wilderness, right? In the end.
In the end, I think it's more healthy for me. Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you describe a typical day in the wilderness?
Yes, of course, depends where we are. So if we are in France, it's very different from here. But like, say next week, I wake up in the dark, when the first birds start to sing, and then I'll go out and go hunting. And I'll walk down the valley, and I come out in open clearing, and I'm looking for hares, like a big rabbit, right?
Okay.
And if I'm lucky, I'll shoot one, and I'll come back, and Peter will be very happy, and he will make in immediately the heart, liver, and kidney.
Mhm.
So we take out the organs and we fry that in the pan on the firebox. But because we are in a hut, we have a little firebox there, very handy, and very warm in the winter. And then we have breakfast, and we might then go to the sea because we are very close to the sea right now. We just have to walk 5 kilometers through the forest and come out in a beach. And this beach is completely deserted. There's nobody there.
Wow.
And this beach got rocks with mussels. So we pick the mussels and we light a fire on the beach and we boil the mussels and eat them straight away. And then we walk back.
Yeah.
And then it's evening and we might cook the hare more, or yeah, depending on what we have or what we don't have. And then we sleep when it's dark. So and we might read a book, and we play chess. We play a lot of chess.
Okay. Nice, nice. That's really cool. And by the way, I wanted to ask you, did you feel, so you said that in Europe that there are many more people than in New Zealand, right? So
Yeah.
in New Zealand, you feel like you have more space, and there's more nature, and you can walk for kilometers without crossing the path of anybody else, right? You have
Yeah.
more. Do you feel you have more freedom, like in New Zealand, than in Europe, let's say, because of less population?
Yes, yes, in a way. But the forest is very thick. It's like jungle, and it's very difficult to walk and to bush bash, as they say.
Oh yeah.
That you have to make and pass through the forest. But in Europe, there are so many little four-wheel drive pathways. It's so easy.
Mm.
There are way less fences, and you can go and follow the pathway all up the mountain. So in a way, we also felt very free in Europe.
Oh really? Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't think so. Okay. And
no.
did you feel do you feel there are more wild animals in New Zealand than in France, let's say, or?
Um, yeah, well, especially the ones you can hunt. Yeah, I would say it's more animals and more mussels than the seaside. Yeah,
Right.
I will
Yeah.
send some pictures of the beach. It's very pretty.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to ask you about the winter. Like, how cold does it get in winter in New Zealand?
Sometimes in the winter, I am thinking, wow, this is like summer in Holland. It is not cold, especially on the seaside. They're very warm in the daytime. Sometimes frost, maybe -3 or so, -4. Not so bad. But the springtime can be very wet.
Hmm.
So springtime, October, November, right now, is can be very wet and cold. This is just miserable. So we stay away from the west coast because the west coast is more wet than the east coast.
Yeah.
Because of the big mountain range, stops all the weather going to the east coast.
Mhm.
So we like to move east in the rainy season.
Okay, so it never gets really really cold, like Because I was
Yeah,
wondering, how do you do to sleep in a tent in winter? Like, how don't you freeze to death? Like, it can be so cold. I mean, here, so maybe not in
yeah.
New Zealand then.
No, it's not so cold as in France. No, not at all.
Okay, okay,
We hardly ever see snow.
okay.
High up in the mountains, you might see some snow, but not that much. And we keep warm with the fire. And also, I have made garments and blankets with the possum skin. The possum skin is very warm.
Oh yeah.
And so I've made with needle and thread. I do by hand. I made a big blanket, and this is very, very warm.
And it's not too heavy to carry around?
Oh, yeah. So depending on what we are doing, if we have everything in our backpack, no, we cannot take this blanket. Then
Yeah.
we just take sleeping bags. But in 4 weeks' time, we organize a food drop, and we can take some more stuff because we stay 1 month in one place. So then we organize ourselves differently, you see.
Oh, I was going to ask, yeah, you don't move every day. You don't change your campsite every day. You stay for a few weeks and then you move to some other place, right? That's how you do?
Not always, but this summer, yes.
Okay.
Because Peter is still a little bit weak, so he does
Yeah.
not want to walk every day with a backpack.
Yeah.
I think that life is finished.
Oh yeah.
Our trek through Europe was the last one.
Okay.
Now
And you
we have
were
to
moving every
organize
day.
ourselves differently.
Okay.
In Europe, we're moving almost every day,
Every
but this
day.
is very tiring. Also,
Yeah.
Peter is much older than I am, so it takes longer to recover.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
when you were in France, do you remember which months you crossed France?
Yes, this was May, June, July,
Oh yeah,
August.
that's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was
June,
not
July,
too
August.
winter.
Yeah, the best
Okay.
months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And someone was asking a question like, do you really always hike with sandals or do
Yeah.
you hike with hiking shoes?
Always
Only
sandals. You know
sandals?
why? I get blisters in boots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
and I discovered I do not get blisters in keen sandals.
and you don't get cold again in winter if it's like 5 degrees Celsius and you're hiking.
Yeah. No, not
You
so
don't
much
get
actually.
cold. Okay.
No.
Interesting.
We walked through Turkey in the winter and it was pretty warm, but wet. Yeah. And sandals is the best because it's light. But for my expedition, I did take mountain boots. But actually, so many times we just walked in sandals because we have to cross so many rivers in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get my boots wet because then they deteriorate so much.
Yeah, but you know what? I was following your example, and when I started hunting, I was going in the mountains with my sandals also, and I
Yes.
agree with you. It's so comfortable compared to hiking boots or hiking shoes. But with
Yeah.
winter coming, it's not possible. It's way too cold. So that's why I was
yeah.
wondering how
Yeah.
you do because it can be really cold, and so maybe you're not that sensitive to cold also. Maybe it depends
Maybe a
on
little bit
people.
less,
Yeah.
but I don't know. The winter and walking in the snow in sandals will not be so much fun. No,
Yeah.
then I would recommend boots. But if you're walking in summer when it's super hot,
Mhm.
yes,
Oh yeah.
you do not need boots. And especially if you are following a trail, sandals will be so much better.
Yeah, people were asking about the Maori. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Oh, yeah.
The tribe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there still Maori tribes like living in the wilderness in New Zealand or not at all?
Not at all. It's so funny
No.
that all French people ask me this question.
Oh yeah.
Why French? Yeah.
I actually
No,
was
they are
not going
living
to ask, but yeah, people were curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah, they are all living in a city and they don't go out in the mountains much at all, I must say.
Okay.
They have a different relationship with nature, more ideological, I guess. But in the north of New Zealand, they are still living much more connected with nature. But we are in the south, high up in the mountains. And the Maori are sea people. So they like to stay on the coast and they like their seafood and
Okay.
all that traditionally. Traditionally, they were not up in the mountains.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's too hard. It's too cold, and there's no food for them. So anyway, now they are very modern people, and they live just like the Pakia, just like the white people.
Oh yeah, I had questions about your backpack. So you carry around a very heavy backpack, right? How heavy is it?
Yeah, my backpack is 100 liters, but that's volume, and how heavy it is depending on water and food.
Oh.
So maybe the heaviest is 25 kilos. Maybe the total heaviest has been 30 kilos. But this is also because Peter find a backpack very heavy. And so I carry more for him. And so my backpack is 25 kilos about, and his backpack is 15 kilos.
Yeah, wow, 25 is really heavy. Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you carry in your backpack? Like, so you said food and water sometimes, and so clothes, your tent, what else do you carry?
So all my clothes, if it's really cold, I put on all my clothes. If there is anything else left in my pack, it's obviously not needed. So one legging, one long trousers, one shorts, and then two tops, one t-shirt, one long sleeve shirt, and then something warmer over the top, and then this shawl and a hat and a cap.
Okay.
And socks maybe for the night. That's about it. Very minimum.
And your tent is heavy too, no? How heavy is your tent?
We now got a new tent. It's a 4-season tent. It's only 2 kilos, I think. It's super light.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and then the rifle also is heavy, and the bullets, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the heaviest. Yeah. So I chose the lightest rifle I could find, but it's still 2.5 kilos.
Oh, wow.
And then a silencer on top of that, and the bullets, and the scope. Yeah, so all in all, maybe 4 kilos. It's quite heavy.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you, how was it transitioning from being a vegetarian to hunting your own meat? Did you notice any health benefits from it? What was your state of mind when you started hunting? And were you vegetarian because of personal conviction, like wanting to protect the animals and wanting to protect the environment? Or why were you vegetarian in the first place?
My mother never cooked meat, so I grew up vegetarian. And I always said, no animal need to die for me. And then when we had the plan of living in the wilderness, I thought, now we need to hunt to survive. So then I felt, okay, if I eat meat, then at least I know how to do this and be very real about it, and I can kill the animal myself. But it was not easy, as I said, with my first possum. But it was amazing that we needed meat in order to keep warm in the winter, because we were always waking up with hunger pain in the morning because the beans and the lentils were not enough. And when we got our first possum, for the first time, we did not wake up with hunger pain. So you really need the meat to keep warm. So if we were in India or a warm place, you don't need meat. Not at all. You can live on vegetables and fruit and fish maybe. But high up in the mountains where it is so cold, definitely you need meat. And what I found out is that my hair and my fingernails improved a lot. So my hair got a lot thicker and my fingernails became stronger by eating meat.
Yeah,
and I feel strong.
I remember that you described that in your book, like the hunger pain and that you couldn't sleep, and when you started to eat meat, you felt better. So you really feel like it's about how cold it is. Like the colder it is, the more meat you need. Like is that it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, meat and fat. Yeah, and if we're really hungry, we just fry up the fat.
Oh yeah.
And normally you would never do this, but yes, we are so hungry, especially when long walking.
Okay. And what would you tell the vegans who watch us? Because I had some vegans reacting to my post in the Facebook group where I was asking people, okay, I will interview her. Do you have questions for her? And I was introducing you, like she hunts in the mountains and blah, blah, blah. And I got messages from vegans saying that you don't need to kill to live, and you shouldn't kill. And why do you do that? And do you feel like it's necessary to kill? So you were saying in this situation it is, in some other situations it's not. What's your position about that?
Yeah, the government in New Zealand is spending a fortune on throwing poison in the forest. It's called 1080 poison. They do this to save the New Zealand environment. And so they're spending a lot of money and time on killing all the animals. So the animals are going to die anyway. In 2025, they want to get rid of all the animals. So I think the vegans should protest against this because the animals are going to die in a very miserable way. It takes 4 days to die after they eat the 1080 poison. I am very against the 1080 poison, and I encourage people to hunt, to eat the meat rather than eating supermarket meat.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is the situation in New Zealand. It's very different in other countries. In other countries, I would not hunt. Also in Europe, I don't want to hunt because the animal belongs there, right?
Okay.
But since it is a pest animal here, it is ethically better to go out and shoot a possum and eat the possum than import lentils from India so that you can be vegan. Right? So every country is very different. And I think vegans, because sometimes I get emails from vegans saying exactly this, that I should stop eating animals. But yes, they have to look better into what the situation is in New Zealand.
Okay. And sorry, I don't understand what is it about? They throw poison from planes in the forest, but to protect the environment. I don't understand. It doesn't protect the environment to throw poison in nature.
No,
what's the logic?
It poisons the nature. Exactly.
But
exactly.
What is the logic?
So many people are against this, and many people are for this. And I don't know the science too much, but I see how can you throw poison in the environment? This pollutes the rivers and kills the animals very slowly. So the idea is that New Zealand used to be a bird island. And when the English people came, they brought with them introduced animals like the pig, the deer, the cats, all these animals that eat the birds or destroy the vegetation because they have no natural enemy here. They don't have a natural predator. So the possum can just increase in numbers enormously. There is nothing that eat a possum except us, and the people don't want to eat it. Right, so they want to get rid of all these animals in order to protect the natural birds, the New Zealand birds. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a crazy logic. Wow. But anyway, it will poison the birds too. I mean, if it poisons the rivers and the soil, the birds will get poisoned also. So...
Yes, but the scientists say that the birds will recover, and I found this very contradiction. It is very horrible. Yes, and especially the kia, the parrot, they're very curious and they want to eat everything, and they sometimes eat also the poison. So yes, it's very controversial topic. The scientists have found out that in the long run, the 1080 does work, but still not good for me because if they throw the 1080 poison, I cannot go hunting because the animals are already poisoned. If I shoot an animal that has eaten the poison, then I will die.
Exactly. I was going to ask you.
If I eat it.
Yeah. So what will happen with you? Like you won't be able to hunt anymore. You can get sick from eating wild animals now. You can get sick from drinking the water in the rivers.
Yes. So we asked the Department of Conservation where the 1080 has been dropped. And then we make sure we don't go there for 3 months or so. Luckily, there's a lot of rain here, so the poison will be washed out to sea. And then it's okay after 3 months, but still, they say it's good for the birds, but not good for hunters.
No, but poisoning nature to save nature, it doesn't make sense to me. But okay.
Not to me either. No,
that's really really bad. Okay. Do you plan to come back to Europe and to France someday? Yeah.
Yes, we hope to come back to Europe in springtime, in May. European spring, New Zealand autumn, and yes, hopefully the COVID situation will improve. Hopefully they have a vaccine, and then we can travel.
Okay, cool. Well, if ever you come back, please let me know, and I would be happy to meet you if possible. And maybe show you around.
That would be fantastic.
Cool.
Yes, go hunting together.
Yeah, that would be amazing. You wanted to talk about Bonnie's letter. That's a letter that you wrote that you sent me, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about it?
So I've written a letter as a request for the Writers' Festival, and it was a letter from the future. So Bonnie is the baby of my sister, Sophie. And the baby is only small. She's only 3 months old. So I have thought, what would the world look like when Bonnie is 80 years old? So in 2100. what will the world look like? And so I've written a letter. So this is a fantasy letter from her in the future. And yeah, I like to attach this underneath this video so that people can read. But the message is that if you look at the essence of life, you see that everything is growing, growing, growing all the time. So in the hour we have been talking, everything has grown more and more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And every drop that comes out of the source of the river is pure. And every drop that comes out of the cloud is pure. And everything that got born out of this earth is completely fresh and new and pure, right? And so the essence of life on earth is so enormously powerful. Everything is growing and growing. And I think we forget this. We look at the world as though we see a picture, as though it's standing still, as though it's stagnant, but we don't see the living, the organic movement so easily, right? It's just a little bit too slow, I guess, for our eyes. But if we do see it, we don't need to worry about the future of the earth, because the power inherent in life is just so powerful.
Yeah, yeah. So nature will survive us for sure, but we can't survive without nature. And that's the point of having to protect the environment, right? And
yes, and in order to protect us, like extinction is a terrible thing. All the pollution, we of course need to reduce the pollution, and for us to have a better life. But in the long run, the earth will survive. A million years is nothing. I think so many people are so negative, but if you look at the big picture, there is no negativity.
Oh yeah.
Give the earth more time, and everything will be as it always has been. I think we have seen disasters in the past, volcano eruptions, ice ages. The earth has been through so many things, and we are just another disaster for the planet. But it's only ever temporarily.
So your book, Wild at Heart, is now in stores. Is it in France?
No, it's not in the store, but you can order online in English. Okay. But my book, my first book, Woman in the Wilderness, has been translated into French.
So where can people buy it?
The first book, you can buy in any shop. Yeah, you know the title. What is the title in French?
In French, it's Survivre au cœur de la nature sauvage.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and your second book, so we can order it online on your website, I saw, and somewhere else,
in English.
maybe? Yeah, on Amazon, on...
Yeah, all the links are on my website on Book Depository, and they even send it free of shipping costs. Okay. So that's very friendly. That saves a lot of money. Yes, and I don't know when the French translation will come. Hopefully within a year. But you have to keep an eye on my website, miriamlancewood.com.
All right, cool. Yeah. And one last question. You did a video to promote your first book in French. You speak 30 seconds in French. Do you speak French, or was it just for the video?
Yeah, I have practiced for 2 weeks to say these 2 sentences.
Wow.
Now 7 sentences. But I learned French in school, and now my parents are in France. I should speak more French. I like to learn, but maybe one day.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for this interview. It was really an honor to have you on my channel. So I hope people enjoyed the interview, and they will buy your book, because it's really, I haven't read it yet, but I will buy it in English. And I've read the first book, and it's really great for people who love adventure. It's really, really a cool book. And for people who like independent, wild women like you, it's really an inspiration.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you for your nice questions.